Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the HR and Payroll 2.0 podcast. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. I think we have a fresh topic today. Do you want to do the intros?
Yeah. I'm excited to bring one of my practitioner friends on the show. Someone that I got to meet on the road at some of the events I've spoken at with the Payroll org. And yeah, just excited to have Bri Mullens join us. She is a payroll and compensation analyst with Maxon. And I've got a lot of questions about that combination. So excited to talk to her. So welcome, Bri.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. It was great to meet you. You know, we actually met at the very first payroll conference I ever got a chance to attend. And you were the first speaker I saw too. So it was a great way to kick things off. And I absolutely love those events. There's nothing better than that camaraderie of being around like-minded people.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I'm glad I didn't screw that up for you, and I didn't ruin your experience. I'm glad that's scary. But I'll take it.
Well, you didn't tell me to go kick rocks when I pulled you aside and asked if I could pick your brain.
Man, I like to think that I'm as approachable as anybody out in the market, and I appreciate it. And we've gotten to hang out a couple of years now at the New England conference. The ladies up there, the team up there, they do an amazing job of that event. I always love going to that one. My daughter lives in the area, so it's nice for me to be able to visit her. But all right. Well, look, hey, Julie, you want to do the honors?
I'm jumping in because I know now how you came in contact with Pete, and what I think we'd love to know a little bit more of is how did you get your start in payroll HR related stuff, and what keeps you here?
Yeah, so a little bit of background about me is I actually have an accounting degree from Bridgewater State University. I'm now active with their advisory board to give feedback of how did I end up using my accounting degree? How can we better the accounting program? Because I did something unique. Obviously, I didn't go a typical accounting route. When I graduated from school, I was just looking for an accounting area to end up in. I knew that corporate America has its accounts receivable, payable, and I was looking for my niche. And I was struggling as somebody who just came out of school to get somebody to take a chance on me and to put me into a role. And like a lot of people, I tripped and fell into a payroll role. And of course, the first payroll role I had was with a very large environmental services company that at that time had 14,000 employees. The team was huge, and you walk in and it was chaos, but it was also like a well-oiled machine. And I had so much respect for that. I was really lucky that when I joined the team, the admins took me under their wing, and I didn't even know how to read a payroll register yet. But I got into the depths of it. And through that process, I gained a lot of respect for the mix of compliance and legal. And we know all of the really complex parts of payroll. But yet still the fun part of an employee will stop by your door and ask a question or give you a call. So my favorite part of payroll is I still get to geek out and do my nerd numbers that I really like being in. I love my analytics. But I also, at the end of the day, sometimes get to really help employees. And that's kind of how I continue my career in. And I'm looking at compensation and adding that under my belt too, because the industry is definitely shifting where more of a lens is being put on comp, especially with pay transparency laws.
Yeah, I wonder since a lot of the payroll activities are going virtual, how much of that fun part that keeps people here because they get that direct relationship, right, with employees that they're helping. I wonder if we risk, losing some of that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I do agree. Even like for myself, I was actually just speaking the other day with my payroll mentor, Mike Scholes, who you probably know, Pete, from, he's a speaker with the Payroll org. He was the one who really got me into payroll. I miss myself being actually on a really big team. I intentionally came to a smaller company to have more exposure, to get this part of compensation. But there's definitely a lot of camaraderie between like being in person, having that payroll team to rely on, but also that in-person interaction with employees too. I do definitely notice a huge difference when I'm in the office versus not. People are more likely to organically like stop me in the hallway or see me at the coffee machine and be like, "Hey, Bri, I was thinking about this," to make it approachable. So I agree. There is definitely a gap there, and we have to be careful.
It's hard to put a value on that part of being away from people. It seems like there are folks that are like either all in or all out when it comes to remote work for payroll. And I was talking to an executive at an event, and he was saying, I don't really love the idea. He's not even in payroll. He's a provider that attaches to payroll largely. And he said, it just seems like it's the one process that should maybe be at home. And I said, well, why? And we started to talk about this. And fundamentally, I put a poll out there just to get what people's sentiment were. But my point of view is like, how can you have a viable business continuity plan for payroll and not have any remote capability? It doesn't seem
Yeah.
like it would be possible. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think you almost have to have a mix now. But you're absolutely right. Like, going back to your gateway from accounting, maybe there's a little bit more impersonal nature of that work when you're in the back office, kind of, dealing with spreadsheets and forecasting and all of that, versus having this human impact on the numbers, if you will, air quote that, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, you went from a large company to a small company. So in larger companies, there's often a tendency to put that initial contact into a contact center or, bundle it with a lot of other HR contact issues. And so, I see the move to smaller companies, maybe bringing a little bit of that back sometimes for folks because you could lose it that way too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because in the beginning of my career, there wasn't even a contact center started up yet. It was a payroll hotline that would ring to everyone's desks, and you were responsible. Okay, who's going to pick it up this day at this time? And you just never knew what you were getting on the other end of the phone for a question, which I think was also kind of part of the thrill too. I always tell employees that no question's a dumb question. I will help you with anything. But I like that part of it. But there are
yeah,
definitely days where I'm like, for the love of God, I just want to sit down and focus on my stuff. I can't people right now, which
Yeah.
is
yeah,
why I do like my home time because it's easier when you want to be deep in things without being like, oh, somebody's walking over to my desk. Let me close my notebook. Let me lock my computer.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. It's like I've been in and helped fix some payroll operations that were a mess, and it was like, Friday was like a 911 operator. Especially during like transformations and transitions to new systems. There's a lot of
Yeah.
that going on, right? At
Hmm.
least back in the day, there was. And yeah, I've seen that. So it's
Yeah.
always an adventure, right?
It really is,
Yeah, yeah.
especially, I've been at companies also that were in the construction industry, so I dealt heavily with prevailing wages and
Ah,
unions and,
certified
so
payroll.
yes, all the certified payrolls, so it was just constant go, go, go,
Yeah.
go. It was a weekly payroll as well. It was a couple hundred employees who were still submitting handwritten paper time cards that I
Oh
had to key
my.
into the system, and, if you don't get that pay right the first
Yeah.
time, you can cause a union strike. You
Yeah.
know? So, I was really proud of the fact that I ended up on great terms with a lot of people, but when
Yes.
something goes wrong, it's disaster.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I have a PEO background from my young career days, and certified payroll. I still have haunting nightmares from putting all that in manually.
oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
times. But hey, look, I want to really get into something that I think is has really drawn me to talking to you. Besides just knowing you, is just this reporting alignment that you have, and the ability to be in a position to work with comp and payroll together. And I have
Yeah.
seen more organizations, right? We had Danny Schultz come on from Kohler, and I've talked to other leaders and especially in the enterprise, where we're seeing some payrolls get pushed together with benefits and comp as a total reward sort of group. And I think that is brilliant. I think it's a
Yeah.
very strategic way of looking at payroll that is beyond the traditional, I call it chicken or the egg, finance or HR. Like, okay, yeah, but what else is kind of under that? But what are your thoughts on that? Like, what's it like having those two things together I guess a pro versus
Yeah.
con? We'll talk the cons, but what's the pros of it?
Absolutely. I'll be honest, Pete, too. I had never even thought of payroll and comp together. I'm kind of a little bit of a one-track mind person, so when I got into payroll, I realized that there was a route here. I'm like, "Let me get a CPP and get into it," and I did all of that. But I was really getting tired of being stuck in just constant processing, which we
Yeah,
all know is not easy. It's a lot. It can make you very stressed out. So I was learning that there's more to payroll, the strategies. And when I started to kind of look at the market and see what was out there for a different role for me, I came across my current role where they blended a payroll and compensation analyst that was reporting to HR, but there's still a dotted line connection to the CFO because we're a much smaller company. So the
yeah,
teams are a lot smaller, but they had never had someone who was just strictly a payroll professional on their team. Payroll was always sitting with the HR manager. They would process through and rely on consultants and also just kind of hope for the best. But when they realized how much growth they were having in the US, and then also we're based in Massachusetts, and the Massachusetts pay transparency laws were coming out saying, hey, when you make a job posting, you have to put in a range. You have to be able to have good faith conversations with employees. If I come to you and say, what's my rate? Why is it this? Where do I cap out? So, in order to get ready for that, they said, let's bring in a person who has payroll background, who can do the payroll cleanup and get us all there, document, do whatever's necessary. But obviously, on a payroll that's less than 100 employees, I don't have to process payroll or worry about those things every single day. How else are we going to fill my 40-hour week? The payroll system that we use has all these compensation modules built in. And they said, hey, we just want someone who can also dig into all of these parts. You don't need to have a compensation background yet, but are you curious about it? What would you do? And that excited me because I've been someone who was on the other end of the conversation with HR of saying, hey, why am I paid when I'm being paid? Where do these numbers come from? And when
Mm,
HR isn't ready to have a transparent conversation about that, it
yep.
plants seeds of doubt within the employee.
Yeah.
So I just saw it as a really great opportunity for me to have some research and round myself out. And it's been fun. It's been
Yeah.
really validating.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so Bri, I have a question. I'm curious about where benefits is
Yes.
accountable. And the reason I ask that is because I see a lot down market in particular where total rewards is this combination of benefits and compensation. And then sometimes they add in payroll or the HRES bit, right? And look at total rewards and include payroll since that's exactly how you get your rewards, right? So
Yeah.
is benefits a part of that or is benefits combined with something else in your organization?
So we don't have a specific benefit admin within the company. It's kind of split between myself and the HR manager. We're lucky that we have a benefits external administrator who helps, shop
Yeah.
for rates and do all of that. But we look at benefits as part of our total compensation because our company pays heavily on employee benefits because they see that as part of your total value. They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, how are you supposed to show up to work and be healthy if you can't afford the rates?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of lines into the total compensation strategy as well. But to
Yeah.
Yes.
answer your question, really the work of it gets split between myself and the HR manager.
Yeah.
Like we were
Yeah.
looking into implementing an HSA plan and we both sat down, okay, what do you know from a payroll perspective? This is the information I have from the benefits admin. How can we both set this up together?
So it's
Yeah.
very much in your role. It's just not a part of the title because the way that it's kind of just part and parcel of total
Yeah.
Yeah,
compensation for you. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the synergies there and what you've learned from that, from maybe working in organizations that had it aligned differently. But like being an accountant, what is your personal opinion on where payroll ought to report, finance or HR? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to give the answer that it's really important for HR to have a close ally connection with payroll. And I found that kind of as a pattern throughout my career that if they don't call, hey, payroll reports to HR, there's not really that strong of a relationship between the two of them. But at the end of the day, I find that when it comes to being in the analytics in numbers, obviously finance and accounting professionals are more trained in that, can help. So I think from a compliance and legal perspective, it should report to accounting, but still have a really, really close connection with HR. Like
Yeah.
monthly meetings, you should have an HR business partner that you align with and just have that open communication channel with each other.
Yeah.
But obviously, that also depends on the company size too. I've been at companies that had a benefits team with a benefits manager, a comp team with a comp manager. It gets a lot more segregated. But when I joined there, I was finding that, there would be issues of the type of data that HR benefits would send us, whether it's something as simple as an effective date or an employee just started in a new state. And, payroll's quick to be, hey, you're sending me the wrong information. And I came in and I was like, we keep having this conversation. Has anybody ever been like, hey, let's meet with HR? Let's give them a script. Let's explain why we need things a certain way. And they were like, well, not really. I'm like, well, let's do that.
Yeah.
So it helped a lot. So all that to say, sometimes it just starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
Have your ally, work with them, and be a team.
Yeah.
It's
I
going to really
agree.
matter. Yeah.
It was the first thing I thought when you said, when it reports to finance, whether they reach out or not. And I feel like, HR by virtue of not being the people or the numbers or sometimes the compliance freaks that you can be in finance. I feel like HR has to. They know they have to, and they do reach out and engage their finance counterparts. And I just wonder, in my own experience, finance when they own payroll reach out are a little less inclined to proactively reach out
It's more
involve
Exactly.
HR.
GL mess reach out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Hey, you
Yeah.
screwed up our books. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's super reactive rather than
Yes.
proactive, which I really don't like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in bigger companies where you'll have an HR generalist for every single little region. And as we
Yeah.
know, if you're in a state that has additional local taxes or things like that, then that's when the HR person needs a little bit additional training for the payroll knowledge and, why we need what we need.
Yeah.
Because, like they say, garbage in, garbage out. But also,
Yeah.
if we're not having a conversation, you can't blame anyone.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
me think one more thing is you own the payroll and comp piece. Does that include tax or is tax actually with finance in your
Yeah,
organization?
so I handle tax as well. If there's any new states to set up, we've actually started to touch on some international tax issues as well. Because when I came in, we were speaking about training visas. Hey, let's bring an employee in from Germany or Switzerland for a couple months and have them train our employees. And I'm no international tax expert, but I was like, "Hey, that sounds like a risk." So we spoke with our consultants, and then it turned into, me working out a process to document a shadow payroll. Why would we do one? I physically brought the employee's Social Security office to help him get his Social Security number. So that's why I was saying, being in a smaller company, it is great because I get exposure to all of these little things that you would never get if you were in a larger role that's
Right.
a little more of a micro
Right.
focus. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. Yeah, I mean, look, I've always been in the finance camp when it comes to controllership and audit, just fundamentally controlling payroll. I think when it hits, it's the biggest hit to the P&L for most companies, so it just makes perfect sense. But I think at the end of the day, what I've been advising on probably for a decade now is like, it doesn't matter where it reports, it matters how you engage them. And I think that's exactly what you just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah,
And how
yeah.
you build, how the business, I'm going to emphasize this, how the business builds a relationship with payroll. That's something that I think the companies that are really doing something cool with payroll tend to be those that have a really good relationship with payroll from a business perspective and recognize the value and then lean in accordingly and then create their model based on what makes the most sense for controllership and employee care and pay experience and all those things. So yeah, I love it. I love the out of the box thinking, and hopefully we could see more. Like how about Monica Miller, right? She was telling us she at Compass has been moved from finance over under the CHRO. Similar, not exactly the same sort of reporting structure that you're in, but that's a massive company. And I think you can see that there. And I think it has a lot to do with the pay experience and just bringing
Yeah.
all of that together. Because you're right, the transparency, the compliance, and just the fundamental ability to go to the employees and present a lockstep sort of comp total reward sort of experience is probably better when they're synergistically working together, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm really lucky to have that close relationship with our HR manager because she's helped to broaden my lens a little bit too. I was
Yeah.
always really passionate about advocating for the employee and the employee experience because at the end of the day, we're the ones on the receiving end of that angry phone call most
Yeah.
of the time. So you want to help, you want to find the solution. But, she really broadened my lens into what else is in it. And even a lot of employees assume that I am HR because I report to HR. So they start to come to me and have conversations that I would never really field from a just regular payroll professional perspective. But sometimes they're honest and they're like, "Hey, I feel like I'm not paid enough," or
Yeah.
I don't even know like how my bonus works. And so after getting enough questions like that, speaking of total comp, I went to the executive team and my manager and said, "Hey, what if we did total compensation letters like at the end of the year?"
Yes. Yeah.
So, because especially when you're in a role for 15, 20 years, you're like, whatever, I get my paycheck, I'm done. But I actually, pulled in the value of their employer covered insurances and the value of their PTO and just to see what your total package is.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot of people.
That
They came
is.
to me and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, Bri, that was cool to see it like that."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think maybe it will help with some retention as
Is that
well.
something you do now actively? You guys provide those?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And that's something you
Yeah.
don't have to do legally in most
No.
cases, unless
Yeah.
the
Right.
union or the country or the state or whatever requires it. But that's a nice touch. And I think that lends it to the pay experience, the transparency element of this beyond the law, that you're trying to do the right thing and show people where the math is and how and what.
Yeah.
Because I think that's when you calm down all the angst and the it's not fair and why this, why that, why did Julie get a raise? I didn't, whatever, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Or the
Yeah.
risk
Um,
of people leaving because they don't
yeah,
understand the value of some of the employer paid options.
yeah,
That's
Absolutely.
where I feel a lot of heads are at. And you're at a very small company right now. And the further down market you go, the less frequent it is for them to have something like that. So I think
Yeah.
that's a great move.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had to fight for it and advocate for it, don't get me wrong. Like, it
Yeah.
it really sounded like they made the case, but luckily, I work with really smart professionals who understand the value of it, and, they do things like listen to podcasts like this and read for other perspectives
That's
and speak
great.
with other
Yeah.
industry professionals, which I think needs to happen more often. Your
Yeah.
payroll professional doesn't need to be, yeah, you might only have less than 100 employees, but let them run with your system. There's
Yeah.
so much extra in it that, you might not have time to jump into. And then to do compensation work like this.
How much is tech a part of that experience for your employees? Are you offering them mobile capabilities, or are you offering them the ability to maybe access some of this AI? Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. So, one of my passion projects myself is I've been really trying to get everyone on the earned wage access bandwagon,
Okay.
to help with some of our employers who are in entry level positions, you know, to give us that competitive edge. Because
Yeah.
especially when you work in a manufacturing type of industry or an area like in an industrial park with warehouses, employees can just jump over to somebody else because it's an extra dollar an hour.
Yeah.
So between the total compensation letters, but also from a strategic perspective, I'm like, what else can we do to be competitive? So that is something that I was really excited about. Surprisingly, I got a little bit of pushback from employees on it where they were like
Mm.
very hesitant and didn't really understand the value of it.
Yeah.
But the reason why it excites me is because I sit here from my perspective. I'm like, well, if you've earned the money, why not be able to access it? With technology and money moves so quick, I can sit here and Venmo my friend right after dinner. Why can't my employer
Right.
pay me the second I'm done?
And solve
So,
problems too. I
Yeah.
always say
yeah,
that. It's not just for the employees, it's for the payroll leaders to solve problems in a very
Yeah.
modern way. It just makes sense. It's part of the payroll stack now. And if you're not doing it, I think you're really behind.
I think adoption is ramping up quite a bit too. So while maybe it isn't, the talk of the town right now or viewed as valuable, at some point in time that becomes table stakes that goes in that checklist of comparing, my current job to my next job and having it, I think is really insightful, Bree, to go ahead and
Yeah.
make sure you're all set to be able to deliver that.
The other day I posted this. There was the payments PYMNTS. You can go pull this up. Is a online publication that does a lot of research and articles on fintech generally. And one of the things that came out of that report is that payroll latency is critical to the experience. Right, the timing between when pay, time or whatever is entered and inputs are entered, and someone actually gets and worked to the when they actually get their pay, and that's a key part of the health of the employee experience now. And I think we've always known that, but I think that's another thing people have to think about is just the speed of which we're able to move money now. To your point, right? In my private life, why can I get this instantly, but I can't get that instantly, right? It just
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
add up. And so, yeah, I love that you guys are branching out into that.
Part of my passion from the employee perspective of I'm constantly just looking for ways to advocate for them,
Yeah,
like, no, hey, our union CBA says this, or legal is this, or let's just pause and look into something.
Yeah.
So I was
yeah,
I was really excited to offer it as a solution to employees, and I'm still going to keep pushing for it this year because I think it's a game changer.
yeah,
Hey, Pete, I think too, operationally, right? Operationally, we know that payroll done in arrears minimizes the number of changes and retros and things that can cause payroll to go wrong. And so, if you want to pay people quicker and your pay cycles every other week or something, the first employee has to wait for 2 weeks to get their first pay. And something as simple as earned wage access could, maybe it's the new hire, right? And maybe that's
yeah.
the time to get them engaged, right? Bree, when they're first coming in and their first paycheck doesn't come until the week after 2 weeks of their pay.
Just looking back at this post I did, I wanted to go pull that report, and it's called the. Let me look at what the name of it was. The Wage to Wallet Index report is what it's called. And one of the things that it just talked about there is that paycheck timing, not the level, is actually eroding the stability. In other words, liquidity stress is coming from when money arrives, not so much how much the workers are actually earning or if it's enough. And I think that's the key understanding here. I've heard a great analogy. I think Jason Lee, the founder of Daily Pay and Chime, talked to us about, you think about when you take a long trip right? When do you run out of gas? It's towards the last few, you know, miles or, whatever hours before you get there. It's not at the beginning of the trip, hopefully, if you've filled up. But yeah, I just think it's a simple modern way to really help people so much.
Bri,
Yeah.
I have a question for you about what's in your comp role, right? Because
Yeah.
moving down market, and you mentioned already that on the benefits side of the house, there's somebody, probably a benefits broker, right, that is
Hmm.
involved in helping to get the benefit plans and keeping that in order. The further folks are down market, the more I find that it's difficult for them to have the type of compensation expertise that would set up their comp ranges or be reviewing their comp structures. And that has a tie point now to all of the things that are, roles based access and how some of your systems are set up and looking at roles. Is that comp structure and analysis also a part of what you might do? And to what extent do you see third parties who are the ones that have maybe more access to benchmark data, or can
Yeah.
do that as a sort of a niche thing that you wouldn't normally be able to keep in house?
So I think that someone like me, for example, where it was a clear defined part of my role because payroll doesn't absorb my entire week, it was a good mix between relying on someone like a consultant, putting your information through pay equity analysis, all of that. But as we know, like they're only going to look at it from the high level data. They don't know the real story behind why Joe has been at the company for 20 years and what his real story is. It can be a little bit more complex.
Oh
So
yeah.
to have somebody so close to the information, and I have looked at literally every single employee. I've looked at their history, I've questioned the why, gone back, and really helped to put together a full story. It started at first with, let me just go into the system, run a report, and dump everybody's titles and salaries, and then I pulled in pivot tables by their titles and salaries and looked for huge variances. And then if somebody was making, 20, $30,000 a year more than somebody else in their same role, that's kind of a red flag. Why?
Yeah.
So first I looked at, what are we paying people? Why are we paying people? And then I went and did the market data. Can we explain the why?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And as a result of that, it was great to see some employees got general increases just because of the fact that they were, in the market for so long and they might have not gotten, constant performance review increases, whatever. And I'm like, hey, you're below market value. We should bump you. And then same thing kind of in the opposite. Unfortunately, you can have employees who they should maybe be frozen because we can't make a case of why you're so significantly above someone else. But then also, it was great to go through and look at the titles and say, hey, we have a level one, two, three. How can we carve out ranges? How does someone move through that? And that was me partnering with HR too. The HR manager has meetings with employees, individual managers, and says, hey, what's the path for your employees? Where do you want to see them? And then she'll show them the market data that I use as well. It's kind of tough finding market data
Yeah.
on a lot of roles.
Yeah.
Not to give them a shout out, but I rely a lot on the Robert Half salary guide for a lot of things. I think they're excellent. But a lot of it is me just hitting Google and sitting there going, payroll for blah, blah, blah in this area, and just
Yeah.
seeing if I can find similar job postings, what salary websites are saying, and then closing in on those bands. I built those bands back into our payroll system so that way it's built in by job title. So it was a lot of a manual heavy lift, but it was a fun practice. And now that it's set up, I do it
Yeah.
every year and I look for shifts, and we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys think you'll need to mature that as you go forward? Maybe with a bigger data set, like a
Absolutely.
salary.com, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we actually we're looking for another benchmarking. We
Yeah.
definitely see the value in it. At first, we just kind of wanted to lay out our map and our story, like
Right.
what are we doing, why are we doing it, and then it was great because it kind of helped set up plans for employees who sometimes feel as though like, hey, I'm not getting promoted, or there isn't a
Yeah.
plan here for me to move on.
Yeah.
But we have been looking at other services as well, including that salary.com one. I believe that ADP has benchmarking data too, which
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
I
A
really
lot
would
of
like to dig
sources.
into. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
sources. So we're looking for that because the data's obviously there. It all gets reported up. So where do we find it?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's my next step.
you said something interesting there that about opportunity, I think, or something there at the end. And I think if you go back again, I point you back to that payments report. Is they mentioned pairing faster pay, right, reducing that or reducing latency, I guess, for payroll, and adding that to upskilling, credentialing, and internal opportunities is it shows that the confidence goes up for workers when they see that there's a forward motion, not just some sort of not just stability of, hey, I'm going to get a paycheck every week. There's an opportunity for me
Yeah.
to elevate my pay. So, yeah, I love it. I want to come back to benefits a little bit, if you will. I don't know if you know, but we put out a where to focus every year. And one of the things I mentioned in there this year was I think more leaders and organizations need to lean into the idea of benefits as a wellness portfolio. And I
Okay.
think what you did with EWA there is in the spirit of that, saying constantly monitoring the benefits program, and benefits has a broad term depending upon what country you're in. But for us, that's medical and earned wage access and paid time off and all those things. But really layering in those solutions that can help people and meet all the different lenses and generations and maturities that you have in your workforce. Do you kind of have that approach to other parts of your benefits programs as well? And your total comp, do you look at it that way, constantly sort of looking for new things and layering that in, or
Yeah, I definitely, I can't speak to exactly what the HR manager does, but from what I see,
yeah,
she is really in there advocating for, what's the best rates that we can get for employees because we care a lot about what's coming out of the check as a
yeah,
deduction at the end of the day. What can we cover to be a little more advantageous? Should we look for a new benefits admin? Are we getting the best service? Even things like medical leave administrators. We've had conversations are they providing the best customer service? But sometimes it's on the flip to the script like, hey, we have this benefits administrator and they're great for whatever it is, but it's causing us so much hours of work in the back end to get this
yeah,
report out every month. Is it worth the cost savings?
yeah, yeah,
That might always be yes, and we did dig into it and come to find out it's not worth it, but ask the question,
yeah,
is
yeah.
there a better way to do this? Are we giving employees all the right outlets?
Yeah. Do you offer things like, because I think there's what I've seen is I think a lot of organizations are trying to layer in not just the benefits part of the medical and that sort of thing, but also just earned wage access and things like remote work, right? Or a
Yeah,
4-day work week for a single mom or something.
yeah,
Or anyone. I mean, I don't want to single someone out, but like you think of use
absolutely.
cases where people could use a little help in adjusting their schedule or adjusting their work balance such that they can, again, I see that as a benefit. It is a benefit. Do you guys look at layering in those capabilities as well? I mean, obviously paid time
Absolutely.
off, but things like that?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
what I really like about our paid time off policy is they have not even made whispers of going to unlimited because unlimited drives me crazy. I think it
People
ultimately
don't
doesn't
take
work
it.
out for the employee.
Yeah, they
People
don't
don't
take it.
take it. And then, at the end of the day, there's no vacation payout for the employee when they go to leave.
Yeah.
So obviously you love it because you don't have to carry that liability.
Yeah.
Um, but we help employees a lot from a financial perspective as well. They're push out a lot of information about financial wellness. We have a 401k administrator and wealth advisor that you can email and reach out to at any point and make an appointment with. So, really looking at it, like you said, from the total holistic employee perspective.
Yeah.
We do a lot for employee feedback. What's important to you? Is there anything additional in the plan that you want to see? The hybrid work is obviously really important to have that flexibility. I personally rely on it because, like we were saying, yeah, it's great to be in the office and have that employee face to face time, but there's some days where I do better at home because I really just need to focus.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think people just need options, right? I call it flexibility levers, right? Like the
Yeah.
ability to pull the levers that help me create the experience that's going to be best for my personal needs, situation, whatever. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that employers are doing what you're doing and just exploring and experimenting and bringing things on and looking at ways of helping people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, look, you're only going to go as far as they can, right? And if they're burned out and they're stressed out and they're scared about payday, or bills,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's going to be it's hard to come to work with your whole focus, right? I mean, it's impossible.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Bri, this wouldn't be an episode in 2026 if we didn't ask you about AI. So, let's go there. Where are you guys with AI as an
Yeah.
organization, but then also just HR and maybe even
Yeah.
drill down into total rewards? Like, where are you guys at?
Yeah. So a lot of us are very curious. We have the licenses for Copilot. We were warned about how to use it, especially, for our engineers and things like that. Do not feed it anything,
So
patents,
you're
all of that.
using
Yes.
Copilot at the enterprise level, using it
Yes.
downward. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So we use Copilot, and I really enjoy it for things like writing process and procedure documents. Like when I referenced that shadow payroll document I was writing before, you know, I used AI a lot in that to just help me write a procedure. Obviously, I went through and verified it all, but when you're trying to write documents in such a simple level, like what is a social security number? Well, I know, but it can be exhausting to sit there and explain it. So if
Yeah.
I can have the system give me a pretty output, which I'm not wasting my time kind of recreating the wheel, let's do it. From a payroll perspective, it's actually tough for me because it's not like I can go into AI and feed it my analysis worksheets and be like, help me do this.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable doing that. I deal with so much personal employee data and even things like pay ranges that I don't know, maybe it's my ignorance with tech. If I feed it a spreadsheet with people's salary information to help me interpret things, can someone else find that somehow later on down the line because it's now fed into the system? I
Yeah.
don't
Good
know,
point. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very, very careful with it, although I really appreciate it because I'll even use it to say, hey, how do I do this Excel formula? Or,
Right.
speak to it with things like that. I'll ask it how like help and how to do stuff in ADP.
Yeah.
How do I get into this part of the system? And it will give you nice, clean instructions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
enjoy it from that perspective.
Yeah, I love ideating with AI. I take my ideas and bounce it off of it. Yeah, say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" What do you—
Eh,
Yeah, so
and how often can you not find where you saved something that you've done and just having it help figure out where the heck you put, something that
yeah.
you've done and who knows what you were thinking when you put it in your Explorer somewhere.
Yeah. Bree, what's your roadmap sort of look like for 2026? What do you guys like? What are you focused on? Is it process improvement, transformation? Like, what do you guys really focusing on in your remit?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really focusing on our compensation philosophy a lot. I've done so much work over the past 2.5 years of, like I said, like pulling all this data and making our why. Now we would love to get it in with a consultant for like their level of analysis, that more benchmarking data. So we're really deep into our compensation right now. And then from a payroll perspective, I'm constantly looking for ways to make our system work better. I think that there's a lot of modules, a lot of checkboxes that you can use, but then it comes time with like the setup. So that's a lot for me too. Is
Yeah.
just going through the system and making sure that we're using every little part of it to its best
Yeah.
capability.
You don't have to say what platform you use necessarily, but does your platform offer you a benchmarking capability? I don't know if you've know
Yeah.
that many of the you do have that?
So we use ADP Workforce now. They
Okay.
do have the benchmarking
Yep. Yep.
capability. We were kind of doing demos of it and seeing if it's worth it or not, but it's definitely in the
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find a lot of the smaller organizations are finding a lot of benefit in, the work days and the, Dayforce and Workforce Now. All the HCMs, I would say mostly, have found a way to anonymize their data sets and share that benchmarking details against various different things you're trying to localize and get information on. So yeah, it's a rich asset. I was just curious if you were gonna tap into that as part
Yeah,
of your work.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to.
Yeah.
And I've been excited to see things like that because as you feed data into the systems, I've always wondered, I'm like,
Yeah.
we have the job title and this and that built in all these HCM systems. Like, where's all that data really
Yeah.
go?
Are you guys engaging AI in HR fairly well beyond Copilot? Like, in Workforce Now, say, with ADP Assist or something like that?
Yeah. So employees aren't really using it. I use it a little bit, but from my understanding, HR is using it in the same way that I am,
Yeah.
helping them write the procedure documents, helping confirm things, and to do research. I think there's still a lot of hesitancy into feeding it anything that we have or
Yeah.
do.
Is your company doing more with AI on the front end of their business or in their products or anything like that yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So the company that I work for manufactures precision motors that go into things like robots and medical devices.
Yeah.
And I work with a lot of really genius engineers. So Sometimes when I'm looking to pass a little time, I'm like, "Hey, what are you working on today?"
Yeah, right?
Because it does touch on a lot of those
It
things. I mean,
is.
we all know robotics have AI involved, and it's fascinating. I got to go to a robotics convention one time because they were having a career fair. So I was hanging out after to help, cover for HR and take resumes and everything. And it was just mind-boggling what's
Yeah,
out there. And I'm
yeah.
sitting here like, "Oh, I use it for process documents," and they're over here, like, building things that change the world, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? But do you have a roadmap? Does your team in HR, do you guys have an HR roadmap for your I mean, would you consider yourself
Yeah.
transformed and pretty mature digitally
Yeah.
from an HR standpoint?
Yeah, I think it's we're really great in the sense, like, if you look at it even just from an old school, like, paper perspective. I remember when I first joined an HR team, I mean, I had piles of paper up to here on my desk and
Yep.
filing, and now I'm like, "Why do" like, I was insistent I needed a lock for my drawer, but why? Because I don't print and file anything
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
We're
Well,
both
that's what we
really
had to do
digital in
back in
that sort of
back in the
sense.
day,
Yeah.
back in finance and payroll, you had to lock
Yeah.
everything up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I'm still like kind of scared of that sometimes. Like this is my first time ever not being in like a payroll office or whatever. But we don't have that much anymore. Our HR manager is definitely still passionate about, what can we do better. I'm really lucky that I can call them up pretty much at any point and be like, "Hey, we should do this." And she's doing a lot of that too, going to leadership conferences and
Yeah,
exploring things. But I think at the end of the day, there's really still only so much we can do, to be honest, like, not to
yeah.
discredit the entire thing, but there's still gonna always be that manual input and work.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. Well, look, Bree, this has been really, really fascinating. Can you, any advice? Any advice to your peers out there who are maybe in this opportunity, right? Heading
Yeah.
into an organization or in an organization that's thinking about pushing payroll together with comp and benefits and total rewards.
I have to say, like, I think it's really smart, and I think it's a great problem solver for a payroll professional like myself who doesn't maybe wanna be niched down into one thing. I think it's a great problem solver if you're like, "Hey, I need some payroll expertise in, but I don't need someone to do that a full 40 hours a week. What other gaps can they fill?" And then if you hire the type of person who is inquisitive and asks questions, and if you give them that ownership to run with it, they can really help build a great partnership with HR,
Yeah,
with other people within the company. Managers know that they can come to me with almost any sort of question or reporting inquiry, and I'm there.
yeah,
So obviously, it's about the right type of hire. I'm not saying every single payroll professional is good for a role like this, but I guess if you're the type of person who likes to see the full pictures of things, if you've ever wondered the why behind someone gets paid what they paid, or maybe you've been on the receiving end of that phone call of someone just being frustrated about their pay, and then maybe they vent to you, "Oh, I'm not paid enough."
yeah,
You can help. You can really make a huge difference there.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
Feels like if you're a payroll person navigating a career too, and you feel like you have less and less of that employee, like, here's I matter, right? That
yeah,
that type of thing in your role, that compensation is the opposite end of, back office payroll type stuff. And it's right on the
yeah,
bleeding edge. So scratching that itch,
yeah,
is great for someone who really wants both things to feel like they're making a
exactly.
difference.
It gives you that exposure and respect into things that you're no longer just a back office person. Like,
Right.
"Hey, look at all this data I have. I can show you some patterns and things with it." And, like I keep referring back to, use them as your ally, help form that relationship because we call ourselves the dream team all the time.
yeah. I love it.
It's
I
great.
love it. Yeah, I think to summarize that, you're owning an experience, and I think it's a huge responsibility when you think about what experience you're holding and controlling and shaping for people. So, congratulations. I hope you
Yeah,
guys
thank you.
all wish you guys all the best success, and I hope you'll come back and keep us updated on what's going
Yeah,
on there. But Bree, where
absolutely.
could folks get in touch with you? Where could people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn under Briana Mullens, and, see me at the payroll conference and
Yeah,
the New England Payroll Conference. I
I know.
absolutely love it there, and, we can all team up and ask Pete a bunch of questions.
Where is it this year? Where is it this year?
It's in New Hampshire this year, I believe.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yep,
I gotta
yep.
come. I gotta come. My daughter lives up in that way, and I always try to make that one so I can
Yeah,
see her. So, well, very
definitely.
cool. Very cool. Well, Bree, thank you so very much. And Julie, as always, thank you to you. Thank you to the audience. And yeah, we'll be back very, very soon with more episodes.